And then the next thing you know, you kind of got a bit of a business. And this is how a lot of businesses start, is they start because somebody, often someone external from us, sees us, sees what we're good at and invites us to do something. And then we think, oh, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. And then what can happen is you get a sort of little way down the track, maybe months or a couple of years even, and you think, hang on a minute, how did I end up here?
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi and welcome to the My Future Business Show. My name's Rick Nusky and I'm sitting here with a cup of coffee sitting in Adelaide, and my next guest is sitting in Sydney, Australia. This next guest is very well known. He was the founder of Flying Solo. He's the author of the 1 Minute Commute. And today we're going to be talking about a range of things relating to building and growing your business. So welcome to the show, Robert Gerrish. How are you, Robert?
I'm very good, Rick. Thank you so much. And I'm pleased to hear you've got your coffee. I have mine in front of me. So, I'm looking forward to speaking with you. Thank you.
It's a real pleasure, a real treat for the My Future Business audience. Now, we were talking a little bit earlier, Robert, about your involvement with Flying Solo, and I'd love to, circle back to that in a short while. But what I'd love to do is give you the opportunity just to share a little bit about yourself with the My Future Business audience. Would you mind doing that?
No, sure. Okay, just be careful, because when people are, my wife always says, don't ask Robert to talk about himself because he doesn't stop. Um, anyway, no, thank you. I will. So look, yes, as you said in your sort of intro, I'm probably best known, if indeed unknown at all, for the work that I did with the business called Flying Solo. So that's an online community of people that are starting, growing, or developing a solo business. That is a business where people work by themselves. And that's a business that I started I actually started it in 2000, but it really came into a sort of meaningful manifestation in about 2005, and grew to become and is Australia's largest online community of very small businesses. So it's a business that I exited at the end of last year, 2017. But ran with my two business partners and a small crew of solo business owners. We ran that for 12 years, and it was absolutely beautiful. I loved every day of it. And our purpose there was to help people that are running a business by themselves. And in Australia, that accounts for about 7 out of 10 small businesses are solo businesses. And the statistic is pretty well exactly the same, certainly in the US, in the UK, and throughout most of Europe and the sort of the modern world. That's a fairly sort of constant kind of figure. A lot of people are choosing to work by themselves. And I kind of accidentally fell into that. I was working initially as a sort of consultant. My background is actually in marketing and the sort of advertising and design industry back in the UK. And I sort of arrived in Australia somewhat burnt out, having worked most of the sort of 80s and 90s in that industry, and happily exited that business. We sold our little business to Saatchi & Saatchi, who were a big ad agency at the time. And I arrived here in a bit of a heap, thinking, God, I'd really want to work differently. I don't want, I wanted an easier life. I wanted a life that was more focused around the way I wanted to live, so I'll use the phrase lifestyle business, but unfortunately these days lifestyle business is often then accompanied by images of people lying in hammocks with laptops and, and it's just that's not what I mean by lifestyle business. What I mean is I wanted to grow a business where I could work how I wanted, where I wanted, with who I wanted. And that's what drives most people to run their own very small businesses, is they want to take control of their destiny and work, doing meaningful work with decent people and keep food on the table. And so I got started in Australia doing just that. And through various twists of fate, I got some publicity with a big ABC TV show on new work practices, and they saw what I was doing. And by then I was had trained in a new thing called coaching. This is back in 1999, and it was new then. And the ABC sort of came across me and did a bit of a profile on me and how I worked. And basically, to cut a long story short, it snowballed into, I was suddenly very busy and actually in danger of getting completely out of balance again. And that was the point where I thought, hang on a minute, I'm onto something, but what is that something? And that's where I kind of sat down and I looked at the people I loved working with versus the people that I kind of didn't enjoy working with so much, or that I didn't resonate so well with. And lo and behold, all the people I really enjoyed working with were solo business people that were building a business to suit their lifestyle. So, being a bit of a marketing person, I thought, hello, I'm onto something here. So I registered the name Flying Solo. This is when domain names would sort of, you could register them easily, and then that turned into a bit of a portal for my writing. It was called a portal in those days before there were blogs. And then a major publication here saw my writing and said, hey, would you write a regular column for us? So I did that. And then a publisher approached me and said, would I write a book? So I did that. And then next thing I know, I've sort of accidentally got a community. Anyway, so yeah, that's it. It was pretty accidental, but I guess in hindsight, if I try and retrofit a bit of strategy, I was following a path. That path was devoting myself to working with and supporting and immersing myself in the whole area of very small businesses, and that's what I've done for near on 20 years, and I don't intend to do anything else.
Did you find it natural for you to come up with this idea, and when you're talking with people that maybe you used to serve in Flying Solo, do you find a lot of people don't really know what they want to do early on, and how do they get past that point?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of people don't know. And there's in my book, I talk about the accidental business. And it's a very common scenario where somebody, for whatever reason, maybe they've had a child and they find themselves with a bit of time away from work, or they've been retrenched or something, and they're not quite sure what to do. And often what happens in those sort of occasions is someone sees you and goes, hey, Rick, if you're not too busy, I know you're good at this. Could you just do this for me? And then someone else says, oh, I saw what you did for that guy, Rick. Could you do it for me? And then the next thing you know, you kind of got a bit of a business. And this is how a lot of businesses start, is they start because somebody, often someone external from us, sees sees what we're good at and invites us to do something. And then we think, oh, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. And then what can happen is you get a sort of little way down the track, maybe months or a couple of years even, and you think, hang on a minute, how did I end up here? And that's often the situation where we met people, and I'm still involved with Flying Solo. I still do work with them, and I still observe people coming onto the forums or onto Facebook that are in that situation. They kind of think they're on a bit of the right path, but they're not, because it was a bit accidental. There's often not much structure there. There's not much vision. There's not a clear path of where they're actually going to, let alone how they get there. That's very often, that's a very common scenario, is people that are kind of enjoying a bit of it, but just not sure where they're going. And, that's a beautiful space. It's a horrible place to be if you are that person, or can be. But it's as a kind of provider of support and services, it's a lovely place to be, because you can instill change pretty rapidly, and you can give people much greater clarity and help them work those paths out through some fairly simple steps. But when you're in the middle of it, when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to see the wood for the trees. And so that's our job really at Flying Solo, and that's my job today as a coach, as I'm back doing, and other things, is helping people just clear the wood a bit and work out what the heck's this all about. Where am I going? What am I trying to do? How will I know when I got there? All that sort of stuff.
And giving them some direction to follow.
Yeah.
I wonder, Robert, are most of the Flying Solo audience, if you like, online business or offline, or is there a mixture of both?
There's a real mixture. Initially, it was the balance is obviously changing, and it's more and more is it online. But I think in most cases it's both. There's certainly within flying solo the majority still are in what we call professional services.
Mm-hmm.
So probably people like you and me, Rick, that are fundamentally selling our skill set for a fee in some shape or form,
Yeah.
as opposed to selling a widget or a product. But increasingly, what is happening is that those people are realizing that actually having a product is also a pretty good thing,
Mm-hmm.
and can help just top up revenue and can work in a number of ways. And similarly, people that are in purely a product business are realizing the need for other aspects of their business that will support them, like the use of proper language and understanding who you're actually going after and understanding where they are. And so, yes, it's a real mix, but probably still slightly weighted towards people more in services than sort of selling products.
Do you think nowadays it's important for those who are traditional bricks and mortar businesses to have an online presence?
Well, I'm not going to be the guy that says no to that,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say yes. But the most important thing is as a business owner, we have to understand the strategy. What are we trying to do here? What I see so often in small businesses, and not just people in bricks and mortar, but just small businesses generally, is people getting very excited about online, diving into things without any really clear strategic direction. And that, to my mind, is a worry. A few years ago, or when we started flying solo, by far the biggest sort of hot button, the biggest thing that kept people awake at nights was finding enough clients and having enough revenue. All right, so that still continues to be the biggest hot button. But hot on its heels these days is overwhelm, just feeling completely overwhelmed and just under almost under like a constant pile of actions and activities that we think we should be doing. And the problem with overwhelm, there's a lot of problems with overwhelm, but it sits in your brain, it slows you down. It's like turning on your computer, starting every single app you've got, and then wondering why something isn't working quite as quickly. And that's what overwhelm feels like for so many of us in business, is that we've got all these things running, and we're trying to keep them all serviced. And what invariably happens is we end up failing to do anything terribly well. And if I go back again to this thing about finding clients, having enough clients, that's number one for most people. But the first question I'll ask someone who is in that sort of situation, I'll say, okay, let's have a look at your diary. How much time are you spending working on that? If that's your priority, how much time are you spending working directly on that? And invariably, the answer is very little. They might be doing lots of little things like posting on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and doing little, but are they really focusing on understanding who their clients are, understanding where those clients are spending their time? Are they spending enough time thinking on what's the kind of language that will get their attention? And the answer is often no, they're not. They're just fiddling around on the edges, doing little things because everybody tells them that's what they need to be doing. Whereas what we should be doing as businesses is if finding clients is your priority and maybe you don't have enough knowledge of how to market, like truly understanding marketing, well, then, go and spend $25 on a book about marketing. Go and follow Seth Godin or someone like that. But people don't do that, unfortunately. We just sort of fiddle around and just try and, spend all day in our inbox and posting on social media without the clarity around what is it I'm trying to do. Sorry, I'm off. My coffee's hitting in now and I'm going off on a tangent.
Oh, look, no problems at all. Something comes to mind when you're talking about these things, Robert, is this idea of busyness rather than productivity, isn't that? That's the case, isn't it?
Oh, totally. Yeah. To understand as a business what our priorities are, that should be that we should be able to rattle those off, have them really clear in our mind, and have them at the top of our action list every day. so that we know what am I doing today to work on my maybe 2 or 3 priorities. And they should be the first things we do. But we tend not to do that. We think, right, well, before I start doing that, I'll just start getting to my inbox. I'll just have a quick look on Facebook and, oh, look at that person over there. I'll just quickly watch that video and, oh, that's a great video. I'll just go over and see what that person does. And then wallop, it's lunchtime and you've done nothing. That's not how to do it. So keeping busy is not a difficulty. Anyone can keep busy. This day and age, buy a computer, it connects it to the internet, and you're busy straight up.
And away you go, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're busy. But, if you look around, the people that are really doing well in their businesses are not the people that you're seeing on social media all the time. They're not the people that are in your inbox all the time. They're quietly going away, doing their brilliance, and that's what we need to be doing as businesses. And it's very difficult. It's difficult to find that balance, but it is possible. And say that's what that's what I'm trying to do with my latest book, and that's what I try to do with everything I do is bringing about a little bit of change in some small way for people. And if I do that, then I'll sleep well at night.
Thank you very much for giving us that insight there, Robert. I really appreciate it. Now, Robert, I'd love to just come back to formats in a minute, but also talk a little bit about your daily routine. What's a typical day for someone like you look like?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, it's interesting because it's changed, of course. It's not having since selling my business. But the way that I work now, I'm in a very interesting sort of spot at the moment, and actually very enjoyable. And you know how you have a little password on, or you don't have to, but on my computer, on my Mac, I have a little passcode, and until I put that in, I can't get to work. And I learned this thing years ago. A really good little tip is to put the thing that is most important to you, make that your password. So, for the year prior to us selling our business, my password was realize the value. So I had to type that probably 30 times a day. Every time I went away from my computer and it went to sleep, I'd have to type it in again, realize the value. So, and lo and behold, that's what my job was last year, was to sell our business, and happily I did. So this year, interestingly, my passcode, I have to change it after I've told you, is making plans.
Making plans.
And I've given myself the whole of this year to make plans. So I'm in, and I'll explain that a bit more at the moment. So I'm in a planning stage. Now, I must acknowledge that I'm very fortunate that I'm able to give myself a whole year to plan, because I sold my business, but also I have, a few sort of regular gigs. So I still do work with Flying Solo for a day or two a week. I do some work with another accounting group where I run some podcasts for them. I have my book, so I do quite a bit of speaking. So I've got some things already in place, which basically is again, without going into too much detail, sufficient to keep my family alive. Okay. Let's put it like that. And so I'm fortunate, therefore, that I have time to think and time to plan, because I'm now in my early 60s. My son my wife and I just have one child. He's just finished school. So it's a changing time for our household. So I'm planning, and I'm thinking, okay, what do I want my next stage of life to look like? So to answer your question, I will get there in a minute, I promise. Is what's my daily schedule like? Well, it's pretty nice at the moment. So the way that I work, it's always been fairly nice, but it's very nice. What I do is I work 5 days. I work from Monday to Friday. 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I go into a co-working space in Sydney. I'm pretty antisocial in that co-working space, as are most people in co-working spaces. But I go in because I like the discipline of going in. I have to, sort of have a clean shirt and put on some socks and, kind of front up. And so I do that. I make myself go in there 2 days a week. And I work from there, and I enjoy it, and I have a few meetings there usually, and I'm quite social. I'm probably known as the long-haired weird guy who smiles at everyone, but I don't care. So I do that 2 days a week. Now, when I'm in there, often what I'm doing is I'm writing. So I still do a fair bit of writing. I write, I don't know, probably an article a week on average, or a couple of articles a week for various sort of publications. So I do a fair bit of writing when I'm in there. I also do a lot of podcast planning. So I run my own podcast called Mellow Brick Road, which is a sort of exploring creativity with people. So I spend some time working on that and working out my guests and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I present or host Flying Solos podcast, so there's quite a bit of work involved with that. And then I do one for a bookkeeping company called The Business of Bookkeeping, and I do a lot of that sort of work.
Yeah.
So finding guests, securing guests, writing the briefs for my audio editor, all that sort of stuff. So I do that Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that leaves Monday, Wednesday, and Friday by my calculation. So Mondays is generally I'm in my office every day at 8 a.m. And Monday is very much my clearing and organizational kind of day. So I clear any junk that's sort of come up over the weekend. I shouldn't call it junk, but emails and LinkedIn contacts. Well, I have a clearing day, and Monday's that day.
Mm-hmm.
Get myself nicely organized, get my business in order. I have my actions for each of my clients and for my business and for my family, and I clear all those up on a Monday. That's what Monday's all about. Mm-hmm. I also go for a long walk in the middle of that day. So I try to do the good old 10,000 steps a day. So I go for a nice long walk on a Monday. Tuesdays is I'm in town doing the way I work. Wednesdays is generally the day that I record my podcast.
Yep.
For various people. So, we're speaking coincidentally, well, not coincidentally really, on a Wednesday. So that's how Wednesdays are. So I enjoy that. And that's pretty well filled up most of Wednesday. Thursdays, I'm in town doing the other thing. And then Fridays, I generally get pretty cruisy from about the middle of the day. So I go off for a long walk with a friend of mine. And then I don't really get much done in the afternoon. But in the mornings, I'm again just kind of clearing up stuff that's come from the week. So I may have some coaching calls. If I haven't done them on a Wednesday, then I'll do those generally on a Friday. So that's kind of how it is. I'm doing a lot of reading at the moment as well. Mm-hmm. So I will, a little while ago, I decided, like you probably, Rick, and like a number of people listening, we've all got, piles of books, or, they're stacking up on our readers or whatever. Mm. And so what I decided, particularly from we're speaking currently, towards the end of the year when things kind of quieten down a fair bit. Mm-hmm. So what I decided a few weeks ago is that reading is still very much a business pursuit as far as I'm concerned. So I will spend a couple of hours in my office or anywhere else I choose to be reading. And I'm reading to do with business or life. And I don't really put much delineation between the two. They're all connected. So I'll spend a fair bit of time reading during the course of the week. If I get spare time, I'll sit and read one of the books and whittle through my pile. So that's how my week goes.
That's amazing feedback. Thank you so much. That's we could break down and follow you throughout your day, almost minute by minute there. Thank you so much.
Was that a bit too comprehensive?
No, absolutely not. And we talk about having some downtime, and obviously you believe in obviously taking away some time for yourself of a weekend. Is that a smart thing to do? Is it important to avoid burnout?
Yeah, well, look, balance isn't something for the weekends. Balance is something for every day. Mm-hmm. So what I absolutely believe in, and what I follow in the way that I work, is that I do things for myself and for my mind each and every day.
Yep.
So I walk a great deal. I do a fair bit of yoga. I just spend time by myself, and I think and I talk. So I do all that. And that's really important to me. Now, there's some fabulous research, again, I talk about it in the book, where our idea generation can be increased by up to 60% just by going for a walk. Now, when I read that, I thought that is astonishing. And yet when you talk to a lot of people in small business who are in a tricky spot, and we all get in tricky spots now and again. And when we're in that kind of position where we're struggling, the last thing, unfortunately, that most of us think of doing is getting up away from our desk and going out for a walk or going to the gym or talking with a friend. We sit there and we, metaphorically bang our head against our monitors. And it's the worst thing to do. So I learned a long time ago that it's just so important to get away from your work And often what I'll do is I'm kind of done with you now. I've had a coffee just before our call. And as soon as we finish our call today, I'm going out for a walk. Now I'll plant an idea in my mind
Mm-hmm.
and I'll walk and I'll think that through. I'll kind of put it in the background a little bit and I'll just go for a walk. And I know that I will have got some clarity about what it is that I'm thinking about by the time I come back a couple of hours later. And so I just think that is such an important thing. And if I speak to a business owner who's in a difficult spot, the first thing, I've already said that, and the second thing I'll ask them is, where do you get your energy? And often that response or that question is met with a response like, I don't have any energy, I'm exhausted, I'm burnt out.
Mm.
And I'll say, okay, let's wind the clock back. When you last had a lot of energy, describe what you're up to then. And that's really opens the floodgates. That's when people say, oh, that's why I used to catch up with my mates. I play five-a-side football at the weekends. I go out with my partner once a week for dinner. I do this, I do that. I go to the movies. All these things that little by little, when we start to feel overwhelmed, we shut them down one by one. Ka-chung, ka-chung, ka-chung. And that's the worst thing we can do.
It seems to me, Robert, that the power of movement is so underrated.
Totally, absolutely. I think it's Mahatma Gandhi again. I quote him in the book. He talks about, I have so much work to do today. I'm going to have to meditate for twice as long. And I just think, what a beautiful way of putting it. Now, whether you're into meditation or not, the concept that this man said, when he's really busy, he knows he needs to spend twice as long in a meditative position. It's a bit like Covey when he talks about the saw. When he said, if I'm going to chop a tree down, I'll spend the bulk of the time making sure the saw is really sharp before I start doing it. It's a similar sort of parallel there, I think, is that if we've got a challenge, if we've got something, we need to get away from our work and just maybe it's walking, maybe it's meditating, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's sitting down with a friend, maybe it's playing with our child, maybe it's sitting on a train and going anywhere just for the sake of going somewhere.
Just getting out. Yeah.
Just getting out. So important.
I'd love to just talk a little bit about the 1 minute commute and possibly share where people can find that and find you for that matter. The 1 minute commute is really it's in the title, isn't it? You're talking. Yeah. This is all about not having to go far to have a business that you work in. Is that what the premise of the book is about?
Yes, it is. Look, the title of the book is not my doing. It's my very clever publisher. So Pam Macmillan was the publisher. I had what was the name? I was going to call it Soul Trading, SOUL, which is a sort of touchy-feely, slightly smart-ass sort of title, which I liked, and that's the title I had in my mind when I wrote the book. But when I went to my publisher with the final sort of manuscript, they said, look, we like the book, but we don't like the title. And so what I learnt many years ago is that when you're in the company of a specialist, try and listen. So I listened. I thought, okay, well, look, you guys are in the business of selling books. What do you think we should call it? And so they came back and said, we think we should call it the 1 minute commute. And I said, brilliant. You guys know what you're doing. You're a builder of a very successful publishing business. So that's why we called it that. And it's absolutely, it's about the notion that your commute is from the the kitchen to the front room or something. It also is very clever because it's sort of it's a vaguely sort of familiar name because it's not unlike the 1 minute manager or the 4-hour work week. So it's very clever of them. And but yeah, my intention writing this book is that it's very much a sort of how-to manual for running a very small business. It doesn't matter whether you're running it from home or not, but the idea is that it's absolutely something that you can pick up and open at any page wherever you want and hopefully get some little nugget that's going to help you. Yeah. It's funny, Rick, I must tell you, I was speaking to a photographer last week. So I do quite a bit of work with people in the creative industries, and this photographer is telling me she's been reading my book and happily is enjoying it. And the way she uses it, she keeps it next to her computer, next to her Mac, And when the Wheel of Death comes up on her Mac, which it often does because she's got massive files that she's downloading or uploading, whenever the Wheel of Death comes up, she picks up my book and just reads a section until the Wheel of Death has, given up. And I thought, what a clever way to read. What a great way to read. And, I was delighted. So, when I see, and I've seen a few people read my book, what I like the most is when I see Post-it notes sticking out of pages, or even pages ripped out, or somebody scribbling. Dog-eared, yeah. Books, we treat them with such sort of, oh, it's a book. But it's, you know what? It's just a book.
It's a resource, isn't it?
It's a resource. So, yeah, that's, my hope is that people will steal stuff out of it and draw in it and pull pages out. I mean, not the library versions, of course.
No.
But, and that does seem to be how people are using it. So I'm very pleased with that.
Thank you so much, Robert. It's been a wonderful call. Now, just in closing, where can people find both yourself and this wonderful book of yours?
Okay, well, thank you. Well, look, they can certainly, where I live these days is at Robert Gerrish, that's Gerrish, robertgerrish.com. There's a section on there about my book and my podcasts and everything else that I do. So certainly find the book through that channel. Or currently in Australia, the book is very well distributed if you can still find a bookshop. Certainly most of the airport bookshops have got copies. It's now on Audible. So if you can bear the thought of listening to me for 6 hours, you can also get a copy of it on Audible. Some libraries have got it, and if they haven't got it, they'll order it. So it's been approved by libraries. Or, have a look around St. Vinny's. They've probably got a couple of copies. Or
It could be anywhere.
Anywhere you like. But it's on, it's on Amazon. It's on Book Depository, Booktopia.
Yep.
It's anywhere you get books. No. And if anybody would like to ask me any questions or chuck stuff at me, just go to robertgerrish.com and I'll be very happy to chat with anyone about anything.
Well, there you go. For everybody who's listening to the My Future Business show today, this has been a wonderful call. I'll make sure that all of the links that we've just mentioned are found wherever it is that you hear or see the post. Thanks again, Robert, for being my very special guest on the My Future Business show today.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.